year is 1220. It is the height of the Crusades. Muslims and Christians have been fighting one another in a war that has lasted for over 120 years. Tens of thousands of Christian soldiers are trapped and dying on a flooded field in Egypt. The opposing Muslim army blocked their only escape. St. Francis of Assisi and the Sultan of Egypt, Malik al Kamil, have defied the angry times and human nature itself to cross the bloody battle lines and meet each other. But will it make a difference? How does anyone stop a seemingly endless conflict? Beset by revolts and numerous assassination attempts, the beleaguered ruler of the Eastern Christian Empire of Byzantium makes a reluctant appeal. He asks the rival Pope of the Catholic Church in Rome for mercenaries. He wants an outside army in his pay, palace guards he can trust, and soldiers to fight off Muslim invaders on his borders. The Pope seizes the opportunity to assert Rome's power and perhaps reunite the two churches under it. He doesn't send the emperor the mercenaries he wants. Instead, he sends his own army to fight the Muslims. If it succeeds, Rome will dominate the region. The Eastern Church will never rival it again. The Pope calls for a crusade to recapture Jerusalem after 5 centuries of Muslim rule. Most people who answer the Pope's call are not killers. Many are peasants who've never fought before.
We know that from some developmental psychology that children have this tendency towards empathy towards others, that they have a tendency to behave altruistically towards others, that they have kind of the underpinnings of morality and justice. And all of these things help a society remain together. If you have all of these psychological tendencies that are preventing you from harming others, how do you motivate people to fight against other humans? One of the most common ways is through dehumanization.
Your brethren who live in the East are in urgent need of your help. Carry aid promptly to those Christians and destroy that vile race from the lands of our friends. Those who refuse to pay him the servant's service that they owe him will justly deserve to suffer a sentence of damnation.
What you unleash then is a certain religious fervor. We are going to take our holy sites from these non-believers. Of course, non-believers are thrown into one category, which would include Jews.
The Crusades' first victims are not Muslims. They are the Jews of Europe.
There's nothing special about the teachings of religion that's driving conflict. Evidence is starting to show that the psychological tendencies that drive conflict are the complex combination of processes in the brain. There are a bunch of kind of deep structures that are underneath, that are kind of central in the brain. Oftentimes it's referred to as the reptilian brain. And we know that it responds really strongly to fear conditioning, fear learning.
The religious propaganda focused on demonize the other as heretical, as satanic. And when you see that you have in your midst the other as well, you say, why not start killing him?
Contemporaries were very puzzled as to why some of the Crusaders attacked the Jewish communities. The excuse was that the whole race was guilty of the death of Christ, and therefore they were fair game.
this kind of moral disengagement from harming others through dehumanization seems to be a major route through which you can get one group of humans to actually harm and kill another group of humans.
Those who would follow Christ to the crown, let them also follow him to battle!
You have a situation where you have a lot of fear activated, so the subcortical structures are kind of going off the hook. It's very strong. It has a powerful effect on our behaviors and can flip immediately.
So as the Crusaders make their way across Europe, they're not distinguishing between the Muslims who have captured the holy sites in Palestine and the Jews who lived amongst them in Europe. So all, quote unquote, non-believers, including schismatic Christians, are the targets. When the Crusaders come into Jerusalem, Christians are killed along with Jews and Muslims. No one is distinguished from the other.
As far as they were concerned, they were all wearing strange clothes, people of a strange culture, so they must all be our enemies.
The cries of battle fade. Silence descends on the conquered city. But it is not the end of violence. It is only the beginning. Christians and Muslims battle back and forth over Jerusalem for almost 90 years. In 1187, troops commanded by the famous Muslim leader Saladin retake the city. Jerusalem is no longer under Christian control. In the glow of this victory, Saladin's young nephew prepares to be a leader himself one day. His name is Malik al Kamil. More than Jerusalem will be at stake when he becomes Sultan. The very future of Islam will be in his hands. Even as a child, al Kamil stands out.
He loved philosophy, mathematics, learning, and of course studying his own faith.
Typically, a traditional Islamic education would begin with memorization of the Quran. And the Quran, as Muslims believe it, is the eternal, uncreated word of God.
A childhood filled with so many expectations can be lonely. Al Kamil's mother eases the demands.
The Quran speaks to religious communities other than the community of Muhammad. The Quran speaks to Jews and Christians who are children of Abraham, who share the faith in the one God.
No compulsion? No compulsion is to be on them.
We have significant theological and practical differences, but we harness those differences to compete with one another, not in animosity, but towards the common good of all.
He grew up with a great love of learning. It was certainly part of the royal court for him to be trained to be the leader of Egypt.
Al Kamil comes to power at a time of crisis in Egypt. Poor harvests have brought famine. Political dissent challenges his rule. Religious tensions are on the rise.
Enough. Enough.
But a greater danger looms across the sea. Cries for the recapture of Jerusalem once again sweep through Europe. In the markets and streets and taverns, a romanticized view of war takes hold. Many dream about the glories of battle and are eager for the coming conflict. One of them is a young man named Francis, from a small Italian town called Assisi.
As a young man, Francis is what we might call a bon vivant, a man around town. His social activities are hanging out with his friends, probably going around Assisi, making a little bit of trouble.
Drinks for everyone! Yeah! Although he was a member of the middle class, and his father being the merchant, Francis also had pretensions of the class above him, the aristocracy, the nobility. He liked to dress in fine clothing. He liked the panoply of being a knight. the armor, the weaponry. He was like a knight wannabe.
Petty wars between Italian city-states were common. When one erupts between Assisi and a neighboring city, Francis eagerly joins.
And suddenly he's thrust into battle. And of course, battle at this time is horrible. This is hand-to-hand combat. This isn't anything abstract.
Since Francis is from a wealthy family, he's taken prisoner and held for ransom.
He languished until his father could ransom him from captivity, but it took a year.
Francis leaves that imprisonment after a year as a shattered and hollowed out young man.
Was he simply going to return to his life of carousing and just having fun?
How are you? What are you doing? What are you...
What was his life to be about? What was he being called to?
In Cairo, a dispute between Muslims and Christians threatens bloodshed.
Sultan al Kamil has very good relations with Christians. On one occasion, there was a dispute about whether a mosque or a church should be built on a certain site.
A mob in Egypt wanted to build a mosque next to the most holy Christian church in Cairo.
It must go. A mosque once stood here. It must be rebuilt. No mosque was ever here.
He determined that there had been a church there earlier, which was the claim the Christians were making, and so he supported them in that.
You are looking for excuses to justify a wrong.
It must be rebuilt. No.
No! It must be rebuilt! It must go! No. No.
When the mobs were throwing stones at him, he didn't react violently. He didn't ask his bodyguards to go and kill them.
God created us separate nations so that we could learn from one another and become better in what we are. Not harm one another. Become less.
This became very controversial. He was willing to take some heat for this. The Christians really appreciated that they were being treated fairly.
Francis spends a number of months, perhaps even a year, wandering in the countryside. One day he comes to the profound insight of his life, which will be the foundation for the rest of his life and his spirituality and of his own order.
Leprosy was a common and much feared disease in the Middle Ages.
Francis had an abhorrence of lepers.
They would have to make some kind of noise with a bell or a clapper when someone was approaching.
He realizes, perhaps the first time in his life, these are genuinely suffering human beings, men and women, like himself. This then becomes the foundational insight. Every man and woman, without exception in creation, is a brother and a sister, one to another, constituting a commonality that we all share with each other.
That basic conviction that really took hold in Francis's heart set him on a path that was very different than his original dream.
Francis adopts this life of voluntary poverty and penance and preaching a message of peace. Gradually, there's other young men in his town who see the wisdom of this and are attracted to it because they also want to drop out of the cycle of violence that is afflicting them.
Where there is darkness going on, light, where there is sadness, joy. We are more than just our daily struggle. The Lord has made us all for a greater purpose. To be instruments of peace. Where there is doubt, faith, it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
There was a tremendous response to living in the world in this way. And little by little, a number of people followed Francis.
Francis travels the country, preaching about the Lord of Love. But the medieval church still holds to the vision of a ferocious, vengeful God who summons believers to war. A new pope, Pope Innocent III, calls for another crusade.
Every day, during the celebration of Mass, when the time has come, before the kiss of peace, the priests should say to their flocks, God, we humbly beseech thee, to snatch this land from our enemy!
Crusaders go to Constantinople on promises to fund their new war over the Holy Land. When the payments don't come, they attack Byzantium instead.
Once you've stoked this in-group fervor, it seems like that can be applied to many different outgroups.
They make a prostitute sit on the emperor's throne.
They tried to sell this whole idea to the Pope by saying, oh, now we hold Constantinople, we've also restored it to the true Holy Catholic faith.
Those fools!
The Pope wasn't really buying this, but he had to make the best of a bad job.
Pope Innocent III explicitly banned attacks on Christian communities. But with Constantinople in ruins, he decides to assert Rome's authority. He dispatches a trusted cardinal named Pelagius to take control.
Cardinal Pelagius was sent as the Pope's legate, and he was sent to solidify the gains of the Latin Christian Church, the Roman Church, against the Greek clergy who wanted to return to their own city.
He wears these scarlet robes, which was something new at the time, because that's the color of the martyrs that he's adopted.
What has happened here is a travesty.
Don't speak until given permission.
Such behavior.
Tell him to tell his priests that they are subject to the one true Pope, His Holiness in Rome.
What right
Tell
do you have?
him that the only words I want to hear from him are the names of those priests who ignore this. That is all.
He was known to be a hard-nosed, intransigent supporter of the papal policy. In other words, it was the supremacy of the Latin Church over any competitors, be they the Greek Church, be they Islam.
No one speaks unless Pelagius first gives permission. Understand? Go.
After the sacking of Constantinople, Pope Innocent III vows that the next crusade will be under strict papal control. He sends an order to the priests throughout Europe to recruit a new army. One of the most successful preachers was a German priest named Oliver of Paderborn.
He was a cleric. He was involved in preaching the crusade, a very intelligent man, very pious man. He was also technically minded because he designed some of the war machines used during the crusade.
A strategic decision was made by the Christian leadership to attack Egypt.
If we could control that trade route, we would be rich people.
If the Crusaders conquer Egypt, they can easily take Jerusalem. And if powerful Egypt falls, the Muslim Middle East will likely fall with it. Only one thing stands in their way: a fortress city called Damietta at the mouth of the Nile.
The Crusaders could not sail through the Nile unless they took the town. So if you were to control Damietta, you almost control Egypt.
One of the most important sources we have on the crusade comes from the pen of Oliver of Paderborn, who comes on site and leaves us a remarkable chronicle of the events around the siege of Damietta.
The capture of hostile land was achieved without any loss of blood. Upon coming to shore, a few Egyptians approached, but a Frisian struck one dead with an iron spear, and the rest fled in terror.
News of the invasion reaches Cairo. Al Kamil hurries a force to Damietta. Vastly outnumbered, Al Kamil's soldiers can only dig in and defend the perimeter.
What's the report?
Sire, more of their reinforcements came today, bringing more siege weapons. Damietta's walls are strong, but they've never been tested against such fearsome weapons before. They launched another assault.
He's in a rather precarious position. We know that he even faced the danger of a coup from within. You can clearly see in his attempts to come to terms with the Crusaders a ruler who is very concerned with the damage that the crusading campaign is having on Egypt. And the reality is he needs to come to some kind of deal, otherwise he's going to face destruction.
The war racks Egypt for 2 years. During this time, Francis is preaching the gospel and growing his movement across Europe. Now he wants to bring his message of peace to the crusade. He travels to Damietta with another friar named Illuminato.
Francis tells us that he clearly heard God asking him to be a peacemaker in this world, a peacemaker in the manner of Jesus Christ. Francis realized that the message he was given to promote peace in the world necessitated him going to the Muslims.
He wants to reach out to these people who were supposed to be the great enemies of Christendom. I just have to say, Francis thought big.
Pelagius is sent by the Pope to lead the new crusade.
His presence in the camp at Damietta was a rather provocative presence. He was an instigator in order to ensure that the Pope's policy of the defeat of Islam happened.
Soon after arriving, Francis faces his first test. Pelagius calls for a new assault on Damietta.
Francis decides that he's going to speak out against this battle. He feels he's called to do this. And he goes out and, according to one of the Franciscan chronicles, begins to denounce the battle and to urge that the soldiers not fight.
The saint leapt to his feet and rushed to the Christians, crying out warnings to save them, forbidding war and threatening disaster. But they took the truth as a joke. They hardened their hearts and refused to turn back.
It was a terrible day for the Christian army. Thousands of people were killed. Very important people were captured. It was a total disaster.
This is what we will do.
Following his victory, Al Kamil proposes a treaty to end the war.
Terms for a treaty. Treaty?
Not all his generals agree.
It offers the Pope control over the Christian holy places.
Then why give them anything? Let's punish them.
And how many more of our men will die if we do? What about the people of Damietta? Starving to death. No. Cannot wait. Let's give the Pope what he wants and send his army home.
Al Kamil hurries a messenger to the Crusader camp with his peace offer.
Did that messenger look like the devil?
Because this so-called treaty is surely the devil's work.
John of Brienne, the acknowledged leader of the Crusade, is the commander of the army in name only. The real authority is with Pelagius.
But we will be weak no longer.
The Sultan gives us control over our holy places. Isn't that what we want?
It isn't what we want. It isn't what we want at all. We can finish this once and for all, here, now.
Yes, we can finish it.
But put away the swords and bring the gospel of Christ to them. Only then will there be peace.
Who is this friar who speaks without permission?
I am Brother Francis.
Francis finally reveals his plan. He hopes to end the crusade by preaching the gospel and converting the Muslim army.
So, young friar, you want to preach to them? Don't you think that they'll kill you on sight? And what difference would it make anyway to preach to a handful of their soldiers?
I intend to preach to the Sultan.
Oh, no, you're being ridiculous! If the Sultan is not the devil himself, he is surely the devil's servant. He'll cut your tongue out after just one word and likely nail it to your forehead. No. I'm sorry. You think his real intention is to martyr himself?
Francis may indeed expect to be killed in this effort, but then that would help Pelagius' cause.
I sent for you to tell you that I've changed my mind. You may go.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Thank you. I will not waver. You have my word.
I'm sure that you won't.
Thank you.
Francis and Illuminato cross the corpse-strewn battlefield.
Wait, please! Please! Wait, we're ambassadors! We come in peace! We come in peace!
The startled guards almost kill them. Francis shouts that he's an ambassador of Christ. Maybe this man is bringing news about the Sultan's treaty.
Please.
Who is this?
I am an emissary.
With news from the King of Rome?
For the King of the universe.
Is it to be peace then?
The greatest peace of all, I pray.
Stop the riddles. Is it yes or no?
It's neither. He isn't sent by their leader. Isn't that right?
No, I come for Christ. I come to preach. I come for peace.
It's an insult. If this is their answer, we should kill them.
Come. Sit with me. Bring them some food.
I think that Francis must have been surprised at what he experienced among the Muslim people, because the popular notion was that Muslims were heathens. They were considered the enemy, of course, and more strongly, they were considered beasts.
After this encounter in the tent of the Sultan, Francis and Illuminato were pretty much given free rein to walk and to be and to live in the camp for a few weeks.
These two were indeed seeking peace in the midst of war, so they were open to being transformed by the person who was allegedly their enemy.
One account says that Francis offered to walk through fire to prove the truth of the gospel. The Sultan declined the demonstration, but said that Francis could address his court.
Francis would have heard the call to prayer 5 times a day. I believe in watching Muslims pray, men and women, 5 times daily, that it really struck Francis unexpectedly. I don't think he was expecting to see this, to know this, but I think it profoundly moved him.
مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين
In the name of God, the merciful and compassionate, glory be to God, the Lord of the worlds, the merciful and compassionate King of the day of judgment. It is you alone we worship. It is you alone we ask for help.
Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
You can directly challenge this perception of dehumanization by showing someone an example of a member of the other group who's particularly human, right? Who displays these very characteristics that you define humanity by. It makes sense from a neuroscience perspective why this would be so transformative. If you eliminate that distinction between us and them, processes that would normally be there to drive conflict are now all taken offline, wholesale.
Francis, I believe, came to the insight by watching Muslim men and women pray that prayer is of the essence for the creature. That if you are a creature, what you do is pray.
Faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light.
Al Kamil fulfills his promise.
May we not
Francis addresses the Sultan's court.
so to be understood.
There is before him a man who makes no demands, who makes no threats, who does not insult his religion, and probably is simply preaching.
Al Kamil might ask a theologian or a scholar in his court to be a respondent. That was part of a classical Islamic court life and court manners.
The respect they had for each other spoke volumes to Francis that this indeed was not an enemy. This was not a beast, but this truly was a brother.
We believe. The Sultan welcomed us, Kuskan.
I am so pleased that my prayers were answered and that God protected you from these wretched infidels. It is indeed a miracle. But I have even greater news to report. Reinforcements will be arriving in the morning. And our spies tell us that sickness and starvation have set in behind the city walls. It won't be long now.
If you give up the rhetoric of hate, then why continue a war? And the point was that the church at the time had a vested interest in keeping the war going. They wanted Jerusalem, they wanted Egypt, that much was apparent.
Pelagius rejects Al Kamil's peace offer. The war will go on until Egypt is theirs.
Sire, they launched another assault on Damietta. Sire.
Assemble the men. I'll lead them.
The Crusaders keep besieging Damietta, attacking, being repulsed. It's a stalemate. But little by little, the siege of Damietta is taking its toll on the people inside.
How long since they've been at the ramparts? 3 days. Alert Cardinal Pelagius.
There were 80,000 people at the start of this war, and almost all of them die from disease and starvation. And so, in the end, a party of Christian troops, Crusader troops, goes, and they just kind of go up and enter the city.
With the capture of Damietta, the Crusader army marches on Cairo. Al Kamil must retreat. The panicked population flees the countryside. All is lost. Ill and dispirited, Francis has returned to Assisi.
It's really a low point in his life. First of all, he's ill. Secondly, he's learned that his order has gone in directions that he disagrees with.
All of a sudden in his writings, there is this universal vision of men and women all called into the praise of God. I think that it is profoundly rooted in what he observed first in Damietta among Muslim men and women. And then this insight gets translated into his own writing to all Christian men and women. He writes a letter which we call the Letter to All the Faithful, in which he urges every man and woman in the world to pray.
In another letter, he writes, perhaps a herald could go through the town announcing time for prayer.
He says that you must make Christians stop every day and pray together wherever they are. The biggest indication that Francis was changed by his encounter with Sultan al Kamil is that he rewrote the rule of his order, its code of conduct, its constitution, really, to say to his friars that you can go and live in peace among Muslims.
You could not have a saintly figure who is willing to see the goodness in non-Christians.
Guard.
Pelagius is within a few days' march of Cairo. His only thought now is to defeat Al Kamil and take Egypt.
The Crusaders thought that they got it made. They were marching towards Cairo. What could stop them now? The answer is the Nile.
The Nile is rising, and they've made camp here on the floodplain.
The Crusader army does penetrate deeper into Egypt, but doesn't know the terrain, doesn't understand these networks of canals that they have, and this river, this ancient river, which can be raised and lowered.
Al Kamil ordered the sluice gates open, and he flooded the country.
They go to sleep one night and they're ready for battle, and the next day, they're flooded. They're in mud up to their waists.
Your Holiness, we are defeated.
This is it. They've left us no choice, and you know it.
All the generals told him, let's go for the kill.
The encounter of Francis with the Sultan Malik al Kamil is probably best portrayed as an encounter of faith. It was a faith exchange. It wasn't so much an intellectual debate, but it was an exchange of two men of faith testifying to how God has led them to this point in their lives. And each seemed, according to the testimonies, okay to listen to the other's perspective and allow God to be God in the lives of both of them.
Surrounded by the floodwaters, they must have been going down like flies with plague and all the problems that you have when I've got a large army camped out on flooded ground.
They can't fight. They're surrounded. The Muslim army could kill them all at will.
He realized that the Crusaders are now in a very dire situation. They had starvations in their camp. They are surrounded by mud. They can't escape. So he orders 50,000 loaves of bread sent to them every day and 1,100 bushels of barley for the animals.
The Sultan was moved by such compassion that for many days he freely fed us as we were dying of hunger. Who can doubt that such kindness, mildness, and mercy proceeded from God?
Francis wants, once again, to write. He writes what we call the praises of God. He names the attributes of God that he's giving praise for. And he says things like, you are mercy, you are forgiveness, you are compassion,
What's remarkable about that is that it's the very way that Muslims invoke the 99 beautiful names of God.
The 99 names of God are attributes of God. For example, the merciful, the compassionate, are the qualities embodied by God, are the ways in which God interacts with creation. And Muslims recite and meditate upon these divine names as a means of self-transformation.
The Crusaders surrendered control of Damietta and returned to Europe. Pelagius's dream of conquering Egypt was over. A few years later, he lost another war against the Christian king who refused to send troops to the crusade. Shortly after that final defeat, Pelagius died. Oliver of Paderborn returned to Germany, never again taking up the trade of war. John of Brienne gave his wealth to the Franciscan order. He was buried wearing the simple robes of a friar. Al Kamil's act of humanity marked the beginning of the end of the terrible period of conflict known as the Crusades.
People are less anxious to sign up for crusading. They were no longer convinced that Islam was the implacable enemy of Christendom. Another reason being the emphasis on the God that Christ preached. The loving God, the God who forgives, becomes much more important.
You are love. You are charity. You are our hope.
Francis died 7 years after Damietta. 2 years later, the church declared him a saint.
Loving. The guide to the right path. The all-forgiving. The merciful. The compassionate.
Al Kamil ruled for 20 more years. His reign was marked by fairness towards the Christians of Egypt. He buried his mother in the mausoleum of a famous Muslim scholar he studied as a boy. Bloodshed and war didn't end with the Sultan and St. Francis. Angry, dehumanizing words spark violence today as before. Transcending differences. The road to peace runs through the common humanity that we all share. The Sultan and the Saint was made possible by the generous support of these institutions and individuals.